I just took off from KSUS and realized my first mistake was instead of climbing 500 feet at 80 knots, I was climbing at a much faster rate. So I had to drop the nose to get to 500 feet per minute, which would increase the speed to over 90 knots. So my calculations on the first two legs would be off, meaning I would get to those destinations sooner rather than I thought in the part 2 video. I could try and do a quick recalculation, but that might not be possible with a lot going on in the cockpit, and it might compromise safety, so I looked at the chart and saw where I could pretty confidently cover the first two legs using the Missouri River as the guide, and I would likely get to Washington Regional leveled out at 4,500 feet at 100 knots, so I could just reset the clock once I got there. I could see how Washington Regional Airport was situated in relation to the bend of the Missouri River, so I was pretty confident I was back on track. Now that I am passing Washington Regional Airport, I know the time to reach the road is just over 4 minutes, so I will turn to a heading of 253 degrees and head for the road. This should allow me to reach the road at approximately 11:50. It's approximately 11:50 and there's the road. So now I turn to a heading of 258 degrees to look for Hudson Private Airport in approximately 3.5 minutes, or approaching 11:54. I never found Hudson Private Airport, so I continued heading west to see if I could find some landmarks that I could identify on the chart. Fortunately, I came upon a location where I noticed the power lines intersecting with one line angling to the southeast and a road heading south. I could simply follow that road close to Drake and then follow that back to Route 50 and follow that to the point where I get back on track and can reset the clock. Which brings us to the point of what do you do if you get lost? First, keep flying the airplane and keep scanning so you don't lose control of the aircraft. Second, if it has been a while since the estimated time to arrive has not passed, keep the heading and do not wander. Third, if the estimated time has long passed, you can pick a landmark below the aircraft, note the time, and begin to circle. Reduce power and airspeed to conserve fuel when circling. Then check the time that has elapsed since last position. Let's say in this example I flew 6 minutes 30 seconds past the last known waypoint. Estimate the distance from that point, so remember, distance equals speed times time. We said the time since the last known waypoint was 6 minutes 30 seconds. 30 seconds divided by 60 seconds is 0.5 minutes. So we have 6.5 minutes divided by 60 to give us 0.11 times 100 knots, which equals 11 nautical miles. On the chart, draw a line across the track 11 miles from the last fix that represents your heading. If we were flying 50 to 60 knots, the line would be 1 nautical mile either side of the track for every 5 minutes flown, since the last fix. If we flew past the last fix 10 minutes, we would draw a 2 nautical mile on either side. Since we were flying 100 knots, we would make the line 2 nautical miles on either side for every 5 minutes flown. So for 10 minutes, that would be 4 nautical miles. Since in this example we flew 6.5 minutes at 100 knots, we will make the lines just a little beyond 2 nautical miles on either side. This is called the line of position. You draw a circle around the line of position, and this is known as the circle of uncertainty. You're likely in what's called the most probable position within the circle. If you are below 3,000 feet AGL, then climb a little. We are at 4,500 feet, so that should be sufficient for where we are. This assumes you can clearly see when you go higher. Clouds or an inversion layer may not permit it, but get as high as you can. Next, read from ground to map, meaning try to find 2 or more large features on the ground and find this on the map. This reverses what you normally do when you are not lost, when you normally look at the chart and then find landmarks on the ground. If you don't find your way, then do an expanding square search. Fly north for 2 minutes, west 2 minutes, then south 3 minutes, then east 3 minutes, then north 4 minutes, and west 4 minutes, and so on, so that the pattern looks like this: and continue to look for identifiable landmarks. Logging your times and headings is a good idea here. You might need to plan for a precautionary landing before fuel runs out, preferably at a site near a house that's open like a field, but preferably an airport if you see one. If it's a field, try to make a low-level pass at that site to check for hazards. We'll talk more about how to land in emergency situations in future videos. In truth, you do have your VOR or GPS navigation options, and those are easier and quicker solutions to use if needed. Another option is to communicate with FSS or ATC. If you're not sure which frequency to dial into, set your frequency to the general 122.2 FSS frequency. Try to determine which VOR you are at or near, and then say, "Any flight service station, this is Cessna November 2095 Kilo, in between the Forrestal and Vichy VORs, heading southwest at 4,500 feet, requesting orientation assistance." If necessary, if you feel you are getting into a distressful situation which might turn into an emergency, and you need to make an emergency landing, for example when you're running out of fuel, you could set your transponder to 7700 and set your radio to the emergency frequency of 121.5 and say, "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday," and when contacted, explain your situation. You have to be in an area where there is radar coverage for the 7700 code to be seen, so this is another reason to climb if possible when lost. Returning back to the flight, I make my turn and head towards Drake, following the road to the south. Once I see Route 50, I can head back to the northwest to intercept the next waypoint. I found the point where Route 50 bends to the west, so I will reset the clock and set the course to 266 degrees, and I can also follow the road to State Tech Airport. I will pass the bend at 11:01, so I expect to reach State Tech Airport in 8 minutes and 24 seconds, so roughly between 11:09 or 11:10. I now see State Tech coming up in the distance. I am passing State Tech at 11:09, so now I can set my course to 277 degrees and look for the bridge over the Osage River, which should be in 5 minutes and 24 seconds, so roughly between 11:14 and 11:15. I have determined that the Osage River is not included in this scenery, and therefore I can't find that waypoint, which brings up the point that if you fly VFR, it helps to have scenery that is as accurate as possible. Although Orbix is very popular, and is what I use for scenery in my sim, it may not always be fully accurate. You might prefer to go to something like Mega Scenery Earth, which is high-resolution photo scenery. I will provide links to both in the description for this video. I feel pretty confident that I can find Route 54 coming out of Jefferson City to the southwest by using Jefferson City, the Missouri River, and the Jefferson City Memorial Airport as guides. So I will continue heading west until I find the road. Here is Route 54. Because I got off track a bit, I don't know where the waypoint is exactly, so I will simply follow Route 54 to where it bends to the west. Here is the point where Route 54 starts to bend to the west. You'll notice there is another road that comes into Route 54, but unfortunately the scenery I have is inaccurate in that it doesn't show the road continuing to the north. Anyway, all I have to do is follow the road to Eldon Airport. It should take just under 5 minutes. So at just after 11:26, it should have me arriving about 11:31 or so. As I turn to the west, I can already see the airport in the distance. It's 11:31 and there's Eldon Airport. So try Pilotage yourself as a personal challenge and be prepared to alter your plans like I had to if things don't go according to the original plans. Subscribe to this channel to learn more.